But their story didn't end there.
How could there have been only one? And he's back in business.
Is the worst idea in the history of bad ideas.
Part 2 is the final chapter in the violent history.
This time, it's personal.
What do we have here? God, here I thought we were special.
Fellas, this here's Bagman.
Hangman.
Whatever.
What the hell kind of mission is this?
Everyone here is the best there is. Who the hell are they gonna get to teach us?
Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell. Let me be perfectly blunt. You are not my first choice. You are here at the request of Admiral Kazansky, a.k.a. Iceman. He seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher. Just want to manage expectations.
What the hell? Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking.
And we're off.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
We're going into combat on a level no living pilot's ever seen. Not even him.
You think up there you're dead. Believe me.
My dad believed in you. I'm not gonna make the same mistake.
Someone's not coming back from this.
Those are your pilots. Anything happens to them.
Smoke in the air!
You'll never forgive yourself.
No turning back now.
Come on! Jeez! Having any fun yet?
If you like San Diego, putting your phone on the bar counter of the Navy bar... What? Oh, because that's what happens. Okay, yeah. Right. And then I guess having to pay for everyone's drinks. The song Great Balls of Fire, Resentments Toward Your Father's Best Friend, John Hamm, a non-specific global enemy, 8 IMAX cameras crammed into a cockpit of a real jet, Tom Cruise making cinema, and finally... If you have jet fuel in your veins, you're going to like the sequel we're talking about. The biggest sequel of the year.
Avatar beat it.
I would say in terms of attendance, Avatar, charges $800 per one ticket. So I think technically in cash. But we're talking about Top Gun Maverick.
Highway to the jet.
We're going to do the whole movie from memory.
The whole soundtrack.
We open. It's sunset or sunrise.
Yeah.
Aircraft carriers over the ocean.
Shirtless men playing volleyball on the beach. Really bumping and grinding for these points.
We were talking Top Gun Maverick. Honestly, a long time coming. This movie came out earlier last year.
30 plus years in the making.
Stayed, I would say finished a long time ago. Yeah. Edited during the pandemic. And Tom Cruise would not allow this movie to come out until theaters
were reopened.
Back. And honestly... Mm-hmm. There are a lot of movies that people are like, oh, this, theaters are back because of this movie. Movies are back because of this movie.
And Chris Nolan tried to do it, and everyone hated him for it.
I think
that was a little too soon.
I'm
just kidding. Too soon.
I don't think it's unfair to say that Top Gun Maverick is actually the movie
that brought people
cinema
back.
Are you sure we've been saying that since last year though? Like there was movies that brought back. You're right though. For me. You're totally right though. I mean, I think it's because this movie stayed in theaters for a long time, like an '80s movie.
I'm talking Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, but that didn't stay in theaters for months.
But I think once you get past the people who are going to go back to movies anyways, like the people,
like us, we were going to go back to movies anyway.
Honestly,
yeah,
we were there during the pandemic. That's why I said we rented.
You just said you watched The Fabelmans with 2 other people.
Well, but I'm saying for the people who were like, I haven't gone to the movie since the start of the pandemic. I think Top Gun Maverick
was that movie.
Was like the first time back for probably more people than ever.
A lot of old people.
Yes, and a lot of people who Top Gun is like kind of made for.
People who saw the first one in theaters.
Yeah, formative movie for a lot of people. I think
definitely it was like
that time.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's. My name's Manuel.
Hey, I'm Andrew.
What's up? It's John.
What is our call names?
Call signs.
Think about it. I think mine would be, if I was legitimately in the Top Gun program, I think mine would be pretty lazy. People just call me Dolphin because my last name.
I call it Sloth.
Sloth? Mm-hmm. Oh, animals. Okay, Drew.
I don't know.
Was everyone an animal?
No, all of them. No. One of them was just Bob.
Bob was not an animal. Oh, Bob's an animal.
What?
What's your call sign?
Mine would probably just be Drew.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, you're with Bob.
Yeah, but spelled differently, like
no,
DRU.
Yeah,
something.
or like if I drew like a verb.
You were a drawer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Art man.
Yeah. Not as cool as Maverick or Rooster.
Yeah,
but cooler than Bob.
Yeah.
That would be like if I was in the Navy and you got to pick your own call signs, right? Like you got to pick your own calls. I don't know. Maybe we should probably ask someone.
I don't think you got.
who was actually
I think the group kind of gave it to you
because I would be like fucking dragon.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm pulling up the list of call signs. Jennifer Connelly's character, the Love Interest, also had her own call sign,
which is
Penny, because her full name Penelope Benjamin, call sign Penny.
That is true.
So a call sign is like a nickname. I get it. No, I'm just saying.
Top Gun obviously was one of the biggest hits of the 80s, and like
86, I think. Right?
Like we were saying, so many formative moments. Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it. When Goose dies, I'm sure it was heartbreaking for a generation. Were you all big fans of Top Gun growing up?
I just saw it yesterday for the first time.
Are you serious?
I am 100% serious. And so
for realsies?
For reals.
Wow.
I saw the second one before watching the first one, which I think makes the perspective a little bit more unique.
Yeah.
But
that happened to me with Lord of the Rings, to be honest. I watched The
Hobbits first.
No, I wouldn't have watched anymore.
Okay, cool. I was trying to check with you that wasn't what happened. But yeah, so I just saw it for the first time yesterday, so I can't answer your question. I pass.
No, but what did you think watching the first one?
Okay.
It's been in your life for a day.
Yeah, and so I haven't had enough time to stew. Can't say.
Okay,
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it was good. I thought it was good. I could see why people loved it. I think it's funny when people are like, "But the second one is shot so much the shots are crazier." And I was like, "Dude, they were doing this stuff back then. Like it was real back then, and they had no CG. I think the little bit of maybe computer generated effects were maybe some of the bullets."
Yeah, they were going
through. Yeah. But that's it. The jet stuff is real.
And they were on a carrier.
It's not Tom Cruise or the actors in these planes, but it's still really cool to get that footage. And it's more impressive that it happened in the 80s because it happened in the 80s. And so, I think it really stands the test of time. It is a little bit dated, but I think it does pretty well at holding up. And it amplified this one. It's only that the reason this one exists is because the first one exists.
And we'll talk about how Maverick addresses some of the shortcomings of the first one.
It does really good at laying down the groundwork for the finale in this one.
Yeah. And it's a Tony Scott movie.
Tony Scott joint.
He's honestly kind of defined a lot of modern action and kind of the look of a lot of things from that time. John, what do you think of Top Gun?
The original, right?
Yeah, the OG.
Off and on, had seen it over the years and stuff like that. I had just rewatched it yesterday with Drew. It's one of those things where it's like a cultural landmark, and maybe if you even haven't seen it, like things from it, like the line, I have the need
for speed, the song,
I need speed,
highway,
okay,
get some
Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins,
which was made for the movie,
right? The other one too, Take My Breath Away,
which was also made for the movie,
right? Yeah, it's it's a staple of like 80s pop culture, like it's a time capsule. You watch it, it's a window into that world. It's a what? Helen Hunt.
That's how you know it was a byproduct of its time.
Why? She's not in this movie. Meg Ryan's in this movie.
Well, you're right.
He's just saying Helen Hunt probably saw the movie.
I need her in the third one.
But like so yeah, like this and Back to the Future, like those movies are kind of like that's like this is the 80s, especially because like a pop song in that first one like pops up every 15 minutes or so. That movie just wasn't it's before my time really. Like everyone who I know loves it was around when they saw it. When it came out. I kind of grew up with other Tom Cruise movies and other fighter jet movies too. Like I think my fighter jet movie would have to be like, I don't know, Independence Day, I guess. Like that's the one as a kid that like
Dunkirk for me.
I see that one as an alien movie.
I played a lot of Captain Skyhawk as a kid. The Captain Skyhawk is this NES game. Yeah, Star Fox. Like I love
Squadron.
Okay, we're getting too.
Well, no, I mean if we're talking like dogfights and like jet stuff, like that's the stuff that I grew up with.
Star Fox is my favorite veteran.
He's
Top Gun.
Fox McCloud is basically Maverick.
Yeah, Top Gun was just a little bit, before my time. I'd seen it like I said, like off and on over the years. It's just not really. It wasn't really my thing. There's other like Tom Cruise movies. There's other older Tom Cruise movies that I think I prefer over Top Gun.
And he wasn't, and Tom Cruise early on wasn't always the action guy. He was doing like Kubrick movies,
risky business.
And,
well, he was doing like a lot, like comedies, some comedies. He was really branching out on these things, and so, there's other ones that I prefer over the original Top Gun. But you can't. It's so iconic, that you can't you'll know what it is when you see it. Like
and
even if you haven't
Captain Marvel is like a direct ripoff.
It's Top
It
Gun.
influenced a lot of stuff.
Top Gun was his highest grossing movie ever up until Top Gun Maverick, and is maybe his singularly most famous role of Maverick in terms of just the general public. Because,
right, yeah. Other than Ethan Hunt, I think is coming up there too.
Yeah, soon I think that'll be a we'll see, but I think that'll be a big thing for him too. But Top Gun Maverick is obviously one of, it's a legacy sequel in a way.
It's been in the works for a while.
Been in the works forever.
Since like Scott was alive.
This is Jerry Bruckheimer who produced the first one and doing, this one as well. Joseph Kaczynski, who was a longtime Cruise collaborator, has helmed this one. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of this detail, but it services a lot of what the next gen is. It also is kind of a metaphor for Tom Cruise and the career of a movie star in a way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in this movie to dissect. But Drew, what did you think of Top Gun Maverick?
It's amazing. I don't even know what to say that already hasn't been said about this movie. I'm glad we're covering it finally because goddamn, it's a hell of a movie.
Right. We wanted to give it an Oscar bump. That's why we waited.
I think there are certain movies that just stand in a league of their own because of how,
like the movie A League of Their Own.
It's true, because of how real they are. It's just people who are dedicated to the craft so much that it's like it has to be real. Like we're watching a scene right now where like a jet flies over Ed Harris. And they're like, yeah, we only did that take once because the jet blew down the shack that we had built. And you're like, damn. That's one that like it's real.
Yeah.
In a world and business where
it's so easy to do
the shortcut and to just CGI. Maybe we'll do it in post, baby. Instead,
to be fair, I don't think anyone can handle like a budget like the way Cruise does.
That is true. He does hijack a lot of his productions. Where and we're firing our insurance company because they won't let me go up in a jet.
Are you saying he's like Maverick?
I'm saying that he's probably a little worse. I'm just kidding.
I mean, yeah, maybe.
He doesn't like to work as a team. It's just me. I'm just kidding. But it's really, really wild to see that type of dedication to movies still. And I don't know if, I wouldn't say it's exactly, everyone's cup of tea, I think. But this one more so than most. It's just wild to see the success that it's had because it's 36 years later, somewhere around there. And usually people don't care anymore after that.
Yeah, totally.
It's 20 years too late or whatever. And so to see this movie succeed because of, one, its dedicated fan base, but also, two, bringing new eyes to the franchise like mine. Mine are completely new eyes. I just saw the first one yesterday in preparation for this because I needed context and stuff like that. But watching this one on its own, it stood on its own. Like even before I had watched the first one, and I compare it to like Mad Max or his Mission Impossible movies, where it's like, holy shit, he jumped out of that plane. Like this is crazy, and half of it is it's almost like Evel Knievel type of stuff, and why he pulled big ratings. We want to see the Daredevil do the next thing. He's going up into space in the next movie. I'll watch his movies just because of how real they are. You can pull up the YouTube video of him prepping for Ralph McQuarrie's new Mission Impossible stunt where he's jumping off the cliff or whatever. And it's just wild the dedication that he has. And he's one of the last true movie stars that we have left. people started to drop like flies after a while, where it's like Will Smith hasn't had a bomb or whatever, and we had a bomb, and then obviously other incidents too, where he physically assaulted people on live TV, and then you have people like The Rock, where it's like, oh man, he's got it, and then suddenly the Black Adam stuff is suddenly a little touchy, and now like he's flawed now, and now you can tell, but Tom Cruise had a couple of those incidents, and he's still here, and it's because of his dedication to the craft as an artist. And I think it's cool because he's been a lot around a lot of productions, obviously. So I trust him to at least respect the movie making process. So I know that he can butt in sometimes, and like something doesn't go his way, and he fires the whole company just because he wants someone else who will work with him and stuff like that. But I think as long as the movie's good, I think it warrants him doing that type of stuff. Like if it works, why would you alter? Why would you alter it any? So, yeah, this movie's great, and it's just that, and it's a lot of it's just him, which is crazy. Because what's the last movie this guy directed? You said he did Oblivion.
Oblivion, right? I think that's his last movie.
And you're like, man, that movie wasn't that crazy.
Yeah.
You didn't hear anything too crazy about that movie when it came out. I was working at the Draft House, I think, at the time. And, it didn't do too well. And so to see him bounce back here because Tom Cruise believed in him and because Tom Cruise is the driving force for everything in this movie, I think it's really cool that it's a metaphor for him, because it's kind of wild that he's in, again, a league of his own.
There's a couple of movies that he worked on. Only the Brave. He made the Spiderhead
this year.
And then he did have a lot of success with that Legacy sequel thing with Tron Legacy in 2010, which was also kind of something from the 80s that had to be reinvented and reintroduced.
Which, again, was lukewarm. Like, didn't really, was good, but
I don't know, actually. That movie
gotta hit that Daft Punk.
But also that movie's like, it seems like it's gaining more fans now than it was
That's
before.
what I'm saying. Is like back in the day, not really the case, but that's why I think this movie's crazy, because right off the bat, you knew that something was different with this movie than the pandemic movies, or
the other thing.
Whatever.
And we did talk about, I think we did a Tron Legacy episode.
Yeah, yes, we did.
Remember? And John, what did you think about Top Gun Maverick?
Holy hell! Like, what the hell? Like, I had no. Well, it's just like
what the hell?
Well, like first watching, I think I remember because you guys had saw it. I don't know. I think Drew might have been the last one to see it. Like in this circle here, you had watched it first, and I think you had Brent from our other podcast director showed him. He had been watching it. You guys had been watching it like multiple times before Drew and I even had a chance to see it.
And it was in theaters for a long time, so it afforded you the opportunity to watch it.
Well, it wasn't even that.
I think
it was a combination of time and also like just like I mean, it's you start hearing all this buzz when it came out. Like you're like, this is you have to see it to believe it and stuff like that. And then now you have to see it on the biggest screen possible. And so,
which you can't say about every movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. And so I didn't know exactly. Even I want to say like even right up until I saw it maybe like 2 or 3 months after it, or maybe like 2 months after it premiered. It had been in theaters in a while, and I kind of got, because of the money it was making, I was kind of like not scared about watching it. Late. Yeah, even walking in, I didn't know if it was going to be that good, but holy hell, is this engaging? Like, it's just like, I had no real love for the original Top Gun storyline, but like it's how different this movie is compared to the first one. Like it's wild. Like the first one I wouldn't say is stylistic, but there's definitely like weird coolness that that you can kind of like that's probably was very normal at the time, but right now like through modern glasses is a little different.
I think Tony Scott said he wanted it to be kind of set in a fantasy surreal San Diego. And where it's always sunset.
Yeah, and it totally is that. Like it's very stylistic, like in that sense. This one is a very straightforward like drama that kind of repeats like the beats, or like it brings back. I don't want to say repeats. It hits like familiar beats, like in action and thematic stuff from like from the first one, but kind of brings it into like a grounded like modern world. Like I like the idea that they're talking about like this is like a old versus new type of thing. Like it's like the dying out of pilots and stuff and the rise of like drones, and that's like kind of like obviously a metaphor for like for
action stars,
for action stars.
I mean, people have told him that action stars don't work anymore in today's age.
Right? Yeah, and then like everything like that. I mean, the digital shit is like taking over. Like, and everything in this movie, not obviously not everything, but like the majority of the stuff you see in here is practical, and that's just like really wild. it's weird to say why this movie works. It's almost hard to really put into words because you kind of just have to watch it and experience it. Like it's the combination of the visuals and the surprisingly like engaging story to me because I was like the story kind of does hit. Like I think all the characters do feel real and or at least like likable. Like even the ones that are unlikable, still kind of like you well like they they'll still charm you.
Hangman.
All of all of that like works on a level that hasn't because all of this stuff could have still been there and it just didn't. It could have just not worked. Like maybe the stunts would have been cool but the story would have been crap. But I don't know what I don't know what Kaczynski did because he caught lightning here and it's just like it's way better. Like, it doesn't just surpass like the original Top Gun. It surpasses like most action movies, and so it's really wild. It's coming from like it's wild and it's just like it's epic to know that Cruise has like this is probably like Cruise's most ambitious shit up until like the next Mission Impossible. But it's wild that he was able to pull this off and that it's just like it connected with so many people. Like that's really 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 wild. Like we were talking about it the other day that this is probably going to be like on the Best Picture ballot. Like it's insane to think that a Top Gun movie is going to be on there. But so yes, obviously since I'm ranting a lot, I really enjoyed it.
And to be honest, it's got a built-in fan base, which is boom, military.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like damn, the military. Everybody who's been part of the military or who has
Gen X too. I mean, they didn't even have to be military. Like
that is
everyone's
true.
just gonna go jump on that.
That's why we're like, man, how did the director do that? I was like, some of it is the built-in fan base, some of it is the IP, and some of it is the star.
Yeah,
like, God damn,
and it all kind of combines.
Yeah.
Well, I think also like sitting on it for so long possibly may have like. You may have had time to tone and hone stuff in. Maybe I don't know. I'm not sure. I knew that they were just sitting on it because they didn't want to release it to streaming, and I knew that was hell. I think that might have been one of the reasons why I signed up for CBS All Access back in the day because you're just like, oh, they had made that deal where like a month later or something like everything's streaming.
Yeah.
And I think Top Gun was announced as that, and then like Cruise very quickly was like,
And a credit to him, I think the movie is so incredibly cinematic, and it's not by mistake that Tom Cruise wanted it to be seen on the biggest screen possible. And I feel like he's worked with a ton of auteurs, Spielberg, when he first started. But being around, even through osmosis, I think even if you're an actor, and he's a producer on this too, like I think you understand what works on a giant screen, and for him not to make something for a streaming service and to understand that like, no, we're actually going to get giant IMAX cameras because these moments need to be, really experienced is massive. And I think that, while Drew was talking about Evel Knievel, there's a lot of this that they kind of had one chance at when they were filming. They're shooting in the real Top Gun place in Nevada. Kaczynski is pairing. All of these young actors that will go over here in a bit all went to, the Air Force school. They all went through training together, which also made them all closer as a team. But meant that they were all paired with an actual pilot who was like a lookalike of them. Got the same haircut as them just in case. And they all went up in the air like for months and did all kinds of things to where they were getting nauseous. And the fact that we were seeing it, and the fact that like, the attention to detail in the craft, and that's why I think this movie might, we don't talk about Oscars all the time, but it could win editing and it could win cinematography because these are real cameras. The editor's on set with them editing the stuff together because they know they do not want to do reshoots. They do not want to do blue screen. So we're getting this, we're getting this today, baby. So much so that Tom Cruise, I think there was a day where the weather was going to come in, which meant they couldn't fly. They're limited to 2 a day. You can only fly in the morning and the afternoon, or else your body cannot handle it. Tom Cruise says, it's going to rain tomorrow. I'm going back up. And he like went up longer than a normal Navy pilot would go up into the air so they can get the shots. And he
bypassed the fucking military.
Navy. He said, I'm out of here.
The U.S. military is like, you don't understand.
He is Maverick.
I am Maverick. I'll do it myself. But, apart from all of the hard work that happened, behind the camera, I think people can sense what the movie is about as well. You don't have to be really that much into movies to understand that Tom Cruise is trying to, comment on his career in a way. And I feel like there's also just such moments of like catharsis in this movie that are really, really big. And whether you're old and just thinking like, if you hold a small amount of resentment to the younger generation or whatever, and the hard work still pays off even without all your technology, or you're young and you're thinking this guy's just a badass, like it works on all those levels.
Right, yeah.
When he not only proves that this plan that is kind of convoluted, that requires canyons and almost passing out,
It's the Death Star run.
is possible because he does it himself, which is one of those moments where I thought this is the finale of the movie, Maverick's in charge, until he does the mission and we're like, oh shoot, this is like, and so there's like 2 or 3 moments when he finds the old F-14 jet that's retired, that they flew in the first Top Gun, and it doesn't have all the technology, but it still works. Like these moments where, whether you're in a theater or by yourself, like they make you feel good and clap and vote, and
Make your ass clap.
Make your ass clap. I was twerking on my couch. And there's something that really works with the young cast too, that doesn't really work all the time when they try to introduce the next gen.
Yeah.
Because of course, like Goose's son,
Rooster.
is in this.
It's very much that, like, even just saying that, you can hear someone roll their eyes or something.
Yeah,
like, it's just
it
like,
could have gone a
yeah.
very melodramatic and weird way, but it didn't. And part of it is because I don't think Maverick understands even like how to he will, just because of the way he is and his whole life never getting a promotion because he doesn't want one, he will just take it, in a way. He'll like, I'll take the blame, even though it wasn't really his fault. But yeah, I think it worked on so many great levels. On the giant screen, it was fantastic. And just like for us, we appreciate the craft and how hard it is to do this stuff without green screens and VFX. And even like whenever, like these are real planes in the air all the time, in the movie. I think it just adds another layer to the appreciation to Top Gun Maverick, which by all accounts, huge success. Well, let's go through some of the, let's talk about the new cast, and then we'll talk about the returning cast, because we'd love to talk about Val Kilmer a little bit too.
Oh, okay, cool. I was
But
like,
Miles
who's the
Teller,
returning cast? You mean like one person?
Yeah,
But
Val.
I guess, yeah.
But Miles Teller plays Rooster Bradshaw. Miles Teller, who I think was like handpicked to be in this movie because of
resembles probably?
previous work that Krasinski had worked with him with. And then Glenn Powell plays Hangman, kind of the Iceman of the group.
Also, kind of he has some Maverick in him. Like I think that's
got a little bit of that. Yeah, kind of confidence.
Well, it's just like he's got that arrogance, because the first movie, Maverick is all about like not playing on a team and doing it just his way.
He's a Maverick.
Yeah. And Hangman's kind of like that. Like he leaves this guy out to dry, and
Hangman.
Yeah, and so like it's just that's pretty cool. Like that's very similar to Maverick, even though the character himself is totally different.
Not the first time we talked Glenn Powell, because he was in the Linklater sequel that we talked about as well. And there's a funny story with Glenn Powell when he was shooting the now famous football sequence. They got ripped for months for this scene, and he pulls his hamstring day one and couldn't be in. He couldn't shoot. So you'll see in the movie, like there's somewhere he's just walking on the side. But he was fine for day 2, and they only filmed 2 days of that football scene. Lewis Pullman plays Bob. Monica Barbaro plays Phoenix, and Charles Parnell plays Warlock, and Jay Ellis plays Payback.
Payback. Yeah, I think Lewis Pullman is Bill Pullman's son.
That is wild.
I think that because it looks like him. So if you click on it, I mean,
is
does
correct.
it say it?
Yep.
Oh yeah, because I was like, I think it like you say Pullman, and then I was like, that looks like Bill Pullman's son.
A lot of next gen stuff going on here. We also get introduced to a couple new characters that we are meant to believe befriended Maverick
back in the day.
The two, and not befriend, but also know him, because Jennifer Connelly
also
plays Penny.
I think Penny was mentioned in the Admiral's daughter is mentioned in the original movie.
It's true.
And that's
Can't
her.
confirm.
Yeah. They had, I think that when Krasinski talks about the hardest thing about the movie, it was her character, because they originally wanted her to be someone that he hadn't seen since the original Top Gun, but then they were like, well, by the end of the movie, that's a very long, like it's a lot of history to uncover.
Right.
So they're on and off. He knows her daughter. That way it's not such like a, I saw you for the first time in 36 years and now we're together again. They kind of have a relationship going.
She lists it too. She's like, what about this time or about this time and this time? Yeah,
Which honestly pretty brilliant. Like, a lot of movies wouldn't even think about that nuance. And then John Hamm as Vice Admiral Bo Cyclone.
Ed Harris.
And Ed Harris. The two of them play kind of, I guess, the military industrial complex.
Hard ass.
We like drones. You can't do it.
Yeah.
It's basically their lines.
Why do you keep fucking what am I saying? Trying to say like disrespecting
honestly,
the rules.
This
or
leads
some
us
shit.
to another returning character, Val Kilmer, who honestly I was a little surprised to see in the movie the first time I saw it. Who played Iceman from the original film? He has had health issues, and there's a moment in this where he speaks, and I was like, "Oh my god,
that's a very powerful moment."
So good.
Wow!"
Yeah.
But his character Iceman has been protecting Maverick all this time, and that is why Maverick, I guess, has survived.
Yeah, they got fucking canned.
Yeah, because constantly he's kind of pushing the limits, and he would need someone higher up, the Admiral, who tragically passes away in this movie, which is another source of catharsis in the other way, where it's kind of sad to think about Val Kilmer, who is, who also had that amazing documentary that came out last year,
right,
and everything he went through. But, it's just kind of like movie stars, amongst movie stars talking about being movie stars in that scene where he's talking about
who was the best.
yeah, isn't that kind of like a wild thing? What do you think about this cast and the combination of new and old?
I think it was great. I think I'm more into the new cast than I am the old cast, which is wild in a that's very wild in a legacy movie.
You didn't like Val Kilmer?
You usually, I mean, yes, but it's just like the movie.
They relied on the new cast a lot,
right? Like the new cast is one of those things where it's just they work. They're just really good. Like it works well here. You're not like you kind of want to spend more time with him, and then the combination of having Maverick there to show him the ropes is really fun because like Maverick is this cranky old guy who's really badass for some reason. Like it's there's an anomaly. Like everyone's kind of surprised on how good he still is, which is. That's a little bit of like, just fluff. Like that's Tom Cruise definitely just patting himself on the back.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, the motherfucker does like giant leaps off of fucking motorcycles, like off of cliffs and shit. So like, so having like the new cast react to that and like basically be us still reacting to Tom Cruise like that is pretty cool. So like I like that. And then, Cruise is good too. Connolly looks like she's having a hell of a time. It's really awesome that Kilmer's there actually too. Because again, I didn't know how they were going to do that, and because of all that stuff that came up with him, like his illness, I didn't know if it was going to be, I didn't know how you were going to touch that, and to give him a role like this, and then, it's great. Like
kind of having the most emotional scene.
The most emotional scene, and then what it means for the character of Maverick, because it is like that not everything lasts, and so like it's kind of like I mean, you would hope he learned something from that. I don't know if he does actually. I'm just thinking about the movie now.
Yeah,
but like
he kind of does.
Yeah, it's a great players, great cast in the movie. It's awesome.
Yeah,
really good. I like that Val Kilmer's more than just a cameo. That like him being in there actually means something, and I like the dynamic that the new cast has because
very fast text fingers.
Yeah. What? Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, he's like texting back immediately.
Which he does the same thing in Jay and Silent Bob when he portrays Silent Bob. Anyway, it's really cool to see the dynamic of the new cast because it matches so much of the old one, where everyone's just kind of
arrogant.
They're the best. They're the best of
a lot
the
of
best.
shit talking.
Yeah,
a lot of shit talking between all of them, and I'm glad that
it's like school. It's school like relationships.
They know
like
everything.
You're just like you're knocking heads because you just want to be competitive.
And it's crazy because remember, Maverick goes up in the air and shows them a little something when he shoots them all down.
Well, and I appreciate this one trying to correct the wrong of the first one, because the first one, I'm not saying it's super problematic, but it is very masculine. Yeah. And I think they're even like at one point his love interest is like the teacher, and they're all kind of just giving her shit because they're like, you don't know, like you don't fly up there, like we're very masculine, macho, whatever. And so in this one, I love that the female cast is just as strong. That they have a female pilot there in their squad too. So that's something that I really like about this one, and it's something that I think doesn't age well as well for the first one, but. It's really, really cool to see that in a new generation, that same dynamic of just, the best of the best and sticking them in a room and having them go at it,
They all do such a good job of playing that. I mean, Miles Teller, I think, not only looks a lot like Goose because they dress him up and give him a mustache and make him look like Goose, and sings Great Balls of Fire, but there's also a lot of the Glenn Powell rivalry with him, and they play those parts really, really well. And I think that, it's I don't know. Like it's such a good way for Maverick to kind of reflect back on how he was at that time, because he sees them and he understands what they're going through, and he's got kind of that smirk the whole time because he knows he's better than them, but also that he's gonna have to like break them into doing this thing, and there's still something for them to learn. It's a cool thing. It's honestly an interesting struggle for Maverick because you assume Maverick is so good at flying, he's just gonna do everything. And here he's like tasked with teaching someone that, and he's like, I'm not equipped to do this. I'm used to just owning it. And then he does have to own it, and he gets the job done, but then he can't survive in the actual mission without everyone coming together. So it's a cool lesson for him, I guess.
It's crazy because the movie's called Maverick, and like sometimes he takes that back seat in this movie because it has to do with the newer cast. So you're like, damn, it's just. I know he pours a lot into this, both on and off the camera, but it's just wild for him to take that step back story-wise to let these newer characters shine also, and in case you want a sequel and maybe he's not in it anymore or whatever, maybe he's going to direct his first movie and it's going to be the third fucking Top Gun or something, I think it's really cool for him to do that as well, because I'm sure he could have hijacked the story. He's like, no, it's just about Maverick.
Yeah.
Like, I get married, I have the kid, and I'm doing this and that. So it's really cool to see that type of dynamic play out here.
What are some big sequences that stand out to you? I just talked about the one where he shoots everyone, to show that
the
he's
push-up contest, right?
Yeah, where he makes them do push-ups and stuff like that. There's obviously the moment where he does the mission himself, both in the computer and with the plane, and then also the actual mission when a helicopter becomes Mission Impossible and a helicopter is chasing him, through the snow.
You don't like the Buzz Lightyear sequence at the beginning where he's going Mach 50 and then crashes and survives?
He does that too, yeah.
I think that sequence is pretty great because that's the intro to the movie. I think it's what you described that shot earlier when it flies over Ed Harris's character, and it's just like, I think just like that first thing, because I didn't watch it in IMAX, which I'm very disappointed that I didn't.
It'll probably be back. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, probably. I'd watch it on a, I forgot what are they called,
DGX, an iPod Touch,
DGX screen, or whatever the fuck those like.
There's like versions of IMAX.
RTX. Something with a D and X in it or something like that. But like
DMX,
Generation X,
Run DMC,
Run DMX. So like having that first scene right off the bat is like it really shakes. I mean, they still like the movie's still very loud, like even if you're not in IMAX and stuff like that. But whoa, like just the way that cinematography, the way that's doing that's I think probably the most fictional part of the movie, like with the very experimental plane. But that's a really cool sequence, like seeing a
plane that doesn't even exist.
Seeing like the curvature of the Earth. You seeing like he's talking you. At this point, you find out that he's never gotten over Goose's death. Like he's still saying like "talk to me, Goose," which is like wild because at this day and age, like it's obviously like 30 years ago.
And Goose is dead.
And so, so like that's a great sequence. What do you have any other sequences? I guess like there's lots to choose from in this movie. I think some of the more emotional ones are cool too, like the fighting ones.
Yeah, I like when they're doing the Death Star run, and then when they get out of there and they start avoiding the what's it called, was it like Coffin Corner or something like that?
Yeah,
with all the surface to air missiles.
Yeah, because
there's that cool wide shot where you just see
missiles. I just love it when the jets use the flares.
Yeah.
I love the sound. I love the look. He does that badass like Tokyo Drift scene where he like Rooster runs out of flares, so he like breaks and then uses the flares, and you're like, God damn, that shot of like Miles Teller looking up at the plane and it's moving. Good. I'm like, good God Almighty.
That reminds me. So this is why I think it also has a chance for best editing. The movie was shot so that he finds just a regular jet, and at the very end of the movie, they find an enemy jet, and then they fly it off or something like that. And then Tom Cruise is like, what if we find the old one from the first movie? But they already shot everything. So the editor of the first Top Gun movie came back to re-edit that sequence so they didn't have to reshoot much at all. So when he's looking down at controls, when there's like reverses and stuff and reflections, they just re-edited that movie to have a totally different ending.
Are you fucking serious? What does that mean? What, like, I'm trying to follow what you just said. Like they just recut the ending. They didn't have enough footage. I don't get it. Like,
no, so there's a scene where he finds an old jet in the movie. Mm-hmm. Originally, he finds just another jet, like a regular jet, not a super old one, just a regular jet that everyone else is flying.
Right.
And they use that to take off. And they were like, well, we can't do any more flying sequences because we've already we've flown in that other new jet.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense? So all of the reverses of them, like, so they did some reshoots of them finding an old jet, hopping in the cockpit, messing around with controls and stuff. But anything in the air, they couldn't. That jet doesn't fly anymore. It's been out of commission
it's
forever.
been forever. Yeah.
And instead of using like visual effects to, CGI a jet into space, they just re-edited what they already had. So you made you think that all of the footage of him in the new jet was him in the old one.
Okay, so they use old jet or new jet footage.
New jet
for
footage
the old jet
with just him like looking down at old jet stuff.
Well, that makes
movie magic, love.
That's pretty cool. I mean, they did say they had 800 hours of aerial footage, so
which is not enough.
Yeah.
We need that cut. Let shoot. What's
Cameron?
the guy? No, who's the guy that made La La Land? Damien Chazelle. Let him edit this. Take a crack at this baddie.
Yeah, so like 800. I mean, yeah, they must have found something to do with like all that footage up in the air because like that's pretty cool.
And and I feel, and part of the reason why they have so much footage is because just like they didn't want to use any CGI.
Right. Yeah.
So they would just
they covered their ass like big time.
They covered their ass. They had a mock cockpit on the ground, and they would block the scene with the pilot and the guy. Then they would go up into space. Or go up in the air. They'd go up in the air, and Kaczynski would wait until they landed. They would look at the footage. They'd go up again.
Your lens cap was on.
Every day for months, they had two jets flying out, and then they would land and re-edit, and they'd be like, "Oh," because
the pilot was like confused as fuck. Like he's like, "All right, they just want me to spin and shit."
Well, and I told John, I said, I don't know where this is at, but I read it on a confirmed source that they flew planes, not those planes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's just like the movie magic thing where it's like, hey, you flew that new plane, and we're just gonna make it look like you flew in the old plane. And
like
so
skins.
Like he flies the plane at the end, Tom Cruise, and I bet you that's the plane that everyone was flying, and they're like, hey. We're gonna take this footage of you looking to the left or right, and then splice it into when you're there.
And there's
in the Rojet.
There's like a theatricality to the flying too, because if you're an actual F-14 fighter jet, you're not emoting much.
Yeah, you're probably not.
Your head's just still, and so they
you're
had to
train to be like. All right, well, this sucks.
But that's boring for a movie. So they did a little more. They judged it up. Like there's scenes where Maverick is like touching the side of the glass while they turn, and I don't think an actual fighter jet would like do that. They're like calm, cool, and collected. But they kind of hammed it up. But it looks really amazing. You're like looking at things whizzing by you.
I think that might be both like an actor, obviously like actor choices, but I think those actually might be like the actor themselves, maybe
freaking
reaction
out,
to freaking out, because it's like isn't that like because at one point Miles Teller jumps out of his seat, but it doesn't look like he intentionally did that. Like he looked like he was like, oh shit, like
freaking out.
They said that he does tell the story of like, I didn't put my seatbelt on, and so
when he did like a spin,
and so it hits him like he hits which is ironic. Because that's what happens to his dad.
Yeah,
he fucking hits the canopy, and maybe that's why they left it in.
Yeah,
but it's really cool on how. It looks the most real. So why aren't they going to use that? And I'd imagine that they have a plane outside their jets where it's like we're trying to get footage of you in the jet, and so just exaggerate your fucking movements because we can't see anything.
They didn't do that. Yeah. It was in the air all the time. They said we're not doing this like you're on the ground thing. Your ass is up there. And that's, I think, why they had the editor on set, because the editor was like, no, you need to do more, because we don't see see anything happen.
Well, and I'm saying that when they're flying in real time, that there's another plane right next to them shooting them from the outside.
Oh, I see, like filming them.
And so that's why I'd imagine, like, oh, you need to exaggerate your movements because you look like a fucking ant from here.
That brings up a point at the very end of the movie. Tom Cruise really flies a single prop plane with Connolly, and he wanted to do barrel rolls. But
Connolly said no.
Connolly was down for it.
Oh,
but
she was down?
They couldn't even tell it was her when they did a test run with a stunt woman. So they didn't do it because Kaczynski's like, if you're doing barrel rolls, the camera can't even see.
Yeah, I was like,
who's in there?
What kind of camera is it?
There'd be no point.
It's not impressive.
Yeah, there's no point for it. So they said no. But Tom Cruise was barrel rolling with a stunt woman just to be like, can we do this? And they're like,
back to Star Fox with the barrel roll.
He has has to be like a literal adrenaline junkie, right? Like at this point, like he likes
talented,
doing it. Like,
he flew a helicopter to the premiere himself, and he stepped out.
Right,
so I mean, that's just not even. That wasn't even filmed. That was just for.
Yeah, he just wanted to do that.
It's one of those things where like
why
would you go back to being normal after this? Where it's like, damn, I'm trying to push.
I mean, at this point, like he's gonna remake Joe versus the Volcano and then jump into the fucking volcano.
Life is kind of boring, so I need to go to space, baby.
What's the name of the guy from Greece and
John Travolta?
Okay. I want Harrison Ford, John Travolta, and Tom Cruise all flying IRL because they all do it.
That's true.
And just like
John Travolta flies them fat ass planes.
Harrison Ford
commercial jets.
Is the weakest flyer.
He can land. Harrison Ford can land.
The Millennium Falcon landed on him.
Anything else you want to talk about with Top Gun Maverick? I mean, I'm just really impressed with, I mean, like you said, like the craft and how hard this movie was to make practically.
We'll say this,
and I think
a negative side, maybe not a negative side, but it's
so
probably.
let me say my positive then.
Okay, cool. Go for it.
Well, because like, damn. And you know how we appreciate the craft and all that, and that's why it's good to us.
The aircraft.
I mean, the people who don't know about the craft still like this movie as much as we did, which is wild. Because I was like, damn, how are you able to grab both audiences?
It's
that's
like
I
think that's like what Cameron says. Like he's like, no one gives a shit about the actual special effects.
Yeah.
They care if like the movie is good. Like if those effects are hooking you.
It's good. Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, even with Avatar and this movie, I think audiences will just be like, was that real? For both movies, because Avatar is impressive on a different thing, and this movie's impressive too. And people are just like, "Was that real?" And I feel like it honestly puts a big gut punch in movies that overuse a ton of CGI, which is like almost blatantly not real. Does that make sense? But it doesn't matter because it's a comic book character or something. Right, so like people are like, "Oh, who cares?" You know,
no
people
such
go
thing
watch
as Thor,
and people actually do like. That affects a lot of people when they see something and they're like, whoa, like this is insane.
Totally. I think it's both cool and dangerous because like movies like this do like raise the bar. Like, you know, it's probably like, it's like, you know, you can probably make an action movie this good. You know, anyone can really, if you think about it, with enough time. And in this case, maybe enough budget because, you know, it's not like, I don't think Top Gun Maverick was more expensive than a fucking Marvel movie. You know, you can, you know, probably.
I don't know about some Marvel movies.
Maybe not
they gave
Infinity
that
War.
other Glenn Powell aircraft movie the same budget? Yeah. No, they didn't. With Jonathan Majors?
I forgot what that was called, but now I have to look it up.
But yeah, like this movie is like very impressive. You know, for like a movie, like for a 30-year-old like legacy sequel, it's wild. And then it's probably one of the best sequels we've ever covered here on the show because
it works on it just works on so many levels. It's actually cinematic, which you can't say about a lot of movies, you know, because they're not made for theaters anymore.
They cut the corners.
Yeah, it's like they're like, oh, everyone's going to watch on their phone, so let's just, you know, do that. So it is kind of rare to see something like this. And we cover a lot of sequels, but a lot of sequels don't take this long to make and don't have this much like that didn't have as big a cultural impact as the original Top Gun.
Right, yeah.
Most aren't better than the first one.
And that's and have that. I mean, Top Gun set a bar that was pretty high because it was formative for so many people. And this movie is formative for a whole new gen and really, I think, important for the people who like the original Top Gun, which is even rarer for a sequel because a lot of times you're like, oh, that new sequel of that is really good, but it's, you know, not... You know, it's not going to win. It's not going to be nominated for Best Picture.
Right. Yeah.
Like this movie and Avatar actually might be.
I know. That's wild.
Wow, what a year.
Two sequels on that. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Both took a long time.
Both action blockbusters and not like indie movies and
I was
like
saying
movies that no one knows that
how
are playing.
How hilarious is it that in 40 years has gone by and the movies we're talking about are a Tom Cruise and James Cameron movie, the same people we're talking about in the 80s, making the biggest movies of the year.
Yeah, it's wild.
Nothing has changed in terms of like what makes something theatrical, even though we think just because it's in theaters it's theatrical.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, the last movie star, really. I would say so.
Yeah, and still like a very stalwart, I'm not doing streaming guy.
Yeah, totally.
That used to be Hanks, and then Hanks.
Him and Chris Nolan need to hook up.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Two big egos.
Yeah, I was like, who's in charge of that movie?
Well, it's also like, I mean, Nolan would be like,
he's like, both of them are like, let's do it for real. Both crash the plane for real.
They're just gonna keep trying to like, no, I want to do this.
Yep.
I don't know. It was like usually the Scientology I think would probably rub Nolan the wrong way.
That is true. John, what were you saying about the negative one? The one negative thing.
It wasn't actually. I mean, now talking
about
it
was bad.
Hold on, edit point. Just kidding.
Oh, not anything that like it was. It's not anything bad. It's just I guess like I haven't. This is something I haven't paid attention to a lot.
Yeah.
The music hasn't really jumped out at me.
Ooh,
compared to like maybe the
Take
hits.
My Breath Away.
Also, I mean, unfair because you're standing up to like hits that are now engraved.
Lady Gaga did it,
culture.
right?
Yeah, Lady Gaga. I'm sure the song is fine too. It's just it doesn't like
It ain't no Star Is Born.
Hold My Hand, and One Republic did one. I ain't worried. Well, and it also relies heavily on the same motifs of.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I mean, the actual theme song.
I'll probably play it in this ep.
Is the same like.
signature. It's like hearing the Imperial March in Star Wars.
Totally.
You're gonna hear that shit.
It's that shit. Like I mean, every Gen Xer who probably saw that like creamed their pants when they saw that intro of the movie. I cream my pants too because when Danger Zone hits, it still slaps.
Yeah. Hearing
like,
that
when
in
it comes out,
IMAX and my seat just vibrating to that beat.
And I appreciate. So they did ask Kaczynski. So we talked about like the visual element of Tony Scott, who is like sure he has a very distinct style that he's carried on for all his movies, but they kept some of that. And Kaczynski said the thing that they added that Scott probably would never do is just a wide lens. Because he's like, well, we're in a cockpit like this. We want to do wide. But there's still a lot of that sunsetty, San Diego-y
totally. Yeah, it's not as like
thing going on in this movie. And that just reminded me when you talk about the music, because I was like, they laid that music on thick, in
the original,
movie.
yeah. Well, in the original, they did. I mean, all of it though. Like, it wasn't just the score, like the theme song. Like, there was every time the love interest came on screen. That
yeah. And you know what? They might do that for Colin Lee every time she's on screen. Actually, gotta rewatch it. They might.
Right, I guess. Well, here that's the thing. That's my point. Then it's not something against Lady Gaga, who's like amazing and shit.
They're
it's
still
just like
using
that
old
song hasn't
House of Gucci.
It's also, I guess, maybe that's my. I'm coming from this. Maybe because those old music are just the old songs are just too iconic. And this one doesn't give us that. This one gives us basically a very iconic movie.
Yeah.
Which me and John call bullshit on one of the parts. They all sing Great Balls of Fire. And I was like, how do all those young kids know the lyrics to Great... Like, Miles Teller must do this every week.
Because it's his dad's song.
Canceled, right? Isn't he canceled for marrying his... Ooh. The singer of Great Balls of Fire.
Oh, shit.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
He married his 12-year-old cousin.
God, why'd you say it on
Sorry, okay.
Edit point.
Yeah,
Damn.
You just gave some news about Jerry Lee Lewis.
Now everyone's going to look it up and not care about this.
I totally agree with Drew. I think when I saw it in theaters, I was like, I mean, Miles Teller makes sense now in rewatching the movie.
Because he was sitting on the piano when
Maverick all his friends, they had a fucking sing-along.
They
like,
Googled
it. You don't have a drunken sing-along to fucking...
He must do that.
You know what? Another thing I know by? These guys are young. No phones in sight. They're not ever.
I think it's a military
on Instagram. Thing. Yeah, and it makes sense that you're not even allowed in the bar. I will say about that bar scene, and I think they've talked about this. One of probably the hardest scenes to write in this entire fucking movie, because you have Maverick at the bar. You're introducing all these new characters. You're introducing Connolly. He has to look back on Rooster.
He's getting thrown out of the bar.
It's the scene. Does that make? It's the scene of the fucking movie.
The setup.
It's the fucking setup of the whole movie, and they introduce a little bit of hijinks because they don't know that he's the guy in charge.
You think they wrote that last? Like they wrote this?
I don't. I bet they filmed that shit.
You need to establish all the dynamics between everybody,
and they did it, and they pulled it off. And then the rest of the movie was just like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, it all just comes easy.
It
all just came real easy.
I will say this isn't negative. One of the weirder parts for me.
Why do we keep saying that when we say something negative?
It's just weird. It's just a weird thing to me. At the very, did you all rewatch it recently?
We saw it right now.
Okay.
We're watching it right now.
Well, the thing that stuck out to me at the end of the movie, he gets back from his mission.
Hold on, wait till the end so I can know.
No, he goes back to the bar.
Yes.
And he's like, "Where is she?" And she's like, "Oh, she's not there. She's on her boat." And I was like, okay. And then it cuts to the next scene. He's fixing his plane. And I thought he was going to like buzz her with a plane on the boat or whatever. And instead she just like comes in, she just shows up in a car. And I was like, why did we see him go to
the bar
restaurant and be like, oh, she's not here. It's just kind of a very like...
It's a parallel to the first one. He goes over there when she sells her place. And for some reason, all the women love him. They chase him.
Come on, Drew.
Like crazy.
That's not for some reason.
They chase him.
I don't think they do that
crazy.
in real life.
Yeah, I know. He jumped on that couch in Oprah. No one chases him. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
He chases people scarily.
Yeah, exactly. And breaks his foot while he's chasing them. Mission Impossible. It's and so it's a homage. I'm sure to the first one. It's a parallel because
and you just watched it recently, so you know.
Because he goes.
I was just like, why are we seeing this scene where it's like seeing him at an ATM pulling cash out, and then he cuts to the next thing? I'm like, wait, what?
His teacher / love interest in the first one. I like wording it that way. She gets a promotion and she's selling her house, and so he goes back around because he's in a funk after Rooster passes, and so he doesn't really want to talk to anybody. He even rudely tells her, like, she's like, "I'm here if you need help," and he's like, "If I needed help,
I remember
I'd rather ask. I would have asked for it." And you're like, "Damn."
He doesn't even graduate, right?
He does. He shows up and he graduates, but and so he goes around her house. She's not there. It's sold. And then she comes back around looking for him at the very end. And so this is the same thing. Surprise. That's why that scene happened. You're welcome.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Just got learned on.
During yesterday's that watch of Top Gun, it was just funny because it was like, yeah, a lot of the stuff is kind of like not repeated, but it's a legacy sequel thing. Legacy sequels do that. Like they kind of they remix like
Sequel
old
reboot?
beats.
It's like kind of.
They remix old
what
beats.
is it? What is it? It's poetry.
Yeah, it's poetry.
It rhymes.
It rhymes. Yeah, exactly.
No one's ever really gone. Well, let's go around the horn and give our final thoughts on Top Gun Maverick. And again, this is this is releasing pretty soon, actually. But who knows? Might be Best Picture.
Might be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Drew, what are your final thoughts on Top Gun Maverick?
Doubt it.
Yeah, I said I doubt it.
Well, just because there's others.
Because goddamn, there's some good movies that came out this year.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the movies that's gonna define our generation and redefine the old generation. Where it's like, damn, like the people who grew up with this, they're like, man, that's my favorite movie of all time. And I was like, I get it. I get why. You waited patiently.
Original Top Gun is the favorite movie of all time for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's cool because I've seen instances where like I've seen some like I'm just gonna not say like specifics, but like there's someone
call them out by name.
No, there's just like there's a person that I know who's a father who loves the original movie, and his daughter loves this movie, and so it's really cool to have like a combination of like generations through a movie like this. It's just wild, like the melding of it. It's kind of like Star Wars in a way.
I was gonna say like it's rare, but it's like a handful of movies that do that.
Yeah, like Force Awakens was that too. Like whenever even like fucking Phantom Menace back in the day was like our connection to the original ones. Yeah,
3-gen Star Wars.
To be honest, if Star Wars would have waited this long for their sequel, they probably would have been better.
As good as Top Gun Maverick. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because Drew was saying like the combination of generations, and I was like, yeah, that's touching because I was like, that's pretty awesome. Like I've seen that happen.
And Top Gun did it in 2 movies.
Yeah,
that's why it's so cool because you can tell the people who were youngins back then have a rooster of their own in the den, and now they can share it with them.
With an Iceman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he's saying, but mine was good. I need the third one to have because it was a goose. Now it's a rooster. I need the next one to be chicken or something.
Duck.
Yeah, duck. Yes, exactly. Quack, quack.
Top Gun Duck.
Duck might seem like a dude who's probably not really cool like call sign.
Yeah.
My name is Duck,
and you gotta give them.
Came to.
I know. Well, and then you gotta like write a reason why he's called Duck, and is he literally just ducking all the time?
Yeah, exactly. He's the
quacks.
Best. What if he's a quack?
You
fucking quack!
That'd be insane if there's like a loose cannon in Top Gun.
That's Maverick again. Like,
that's true. But a second loose cannon.
Well, all their cannons are loose.
Cannon. That's another character that could have been
loose.
Like,
Nick.
Loose. Oh,
cannon.
Lots of.
Is that your
mine's loose?
Your final answer,
John? What are your final thoughts on Top Gun Maverick?
That was funny. Great movie. Probably one of the better. When did that happen?
I got you this Chewy bar.
There's a Chewy bar that just came up.
Well, I forgot I brought this, and I'm like, I don't want this. You want it?
That's hilarious.
I have a bunch in my.
I do want it. I mean, if you don't want it, I'll eat it after the podcast.
S'mores flavored.
Thank you.
We're already starting dinner here.
Oh yeah, you're right. I should probably eat my chicken. I mean, yeah, I'll keep it then anyway. Yeah. But great movie. I had no. Again, like it's so. It doesn't seem like it because I've been talking about this the entire podcast, but like. I'm still surprised that I like this fucking flick. It's just like it's.
I think everyone kind of is, to be honest with you.
Well, it's also very rewatchable. Like having it on right now, and then like I haven't gotten tired of it yet. Like that action scene at the very end, like the third act one, is really really satisfying. Like it's just as like satisfying as I think Drew brought it up. Like on the equivalent to like the Mad Max. Maybe that's a little bit more extreme, but like
the action sequences, are on par.
Those those action sequences are on par, like up to that level, and everything in between, like like you said, the cast, the way the story goes through, everything is just like it's firing on all cylinders, and it is very very surprising, and it is kind of like it does make you a little sad for the future, because you don't know who would ever kind of do stuff like this again.
Like, will there ever be a better fighter jet plane movie?
Or just in general,
probably
like,
not.
This is the type of spectacle you don't kind of like see like too often. I won't say like you don't see it anymore. You don't see it often, and so like this really does feel like kind of like a dying breed of things, which is kind of like whoa, like you would wonder.
Oh man,
like, so I compare.
But it's also like, but you wonder if
meta
like,
man
movies like this. What if like there is a turnaround? Like what if like maybe the Nolan effect or stuff like that, where you just do more practical. Like what if that just comes back around? And you would hope so. I mean, I'd like CG too. I mean, I'm sure an actor loves
It's
Avatar,
and for a lot of things, it is safer. Like we shouldn't be.
An actor doesn't want to be in front of a volcano.
Shouldn't be crashing stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Christopher Nolan, don't be crashing stuff.
Well, also the thing is too. I mean, even I get it too. Had God forbid, I'm knocking on wood. One of those sessions would have went bad or something. It would have been awful.
And that's why Tom Cruise, he's a daredevil, but he's incredibly safe for a lot of this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not.
It's tested through the. That's where probably the budget goes through. Testing.
Again, look up that YouTube video of him planning that bungee jump off the thing. They're we've been teaching him how to ride a motorcycle for 3 months.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah, and they're practicing it every day.
But that's the magic of movies. Is it looks like he's just jumping off a cliff because
for the first time
he can't do anything else except jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
But in reality, they tested the shit. They threw a watermelon off first.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still all the more thrilling for some reason. It's still there's something you can just tell. When something's kind of whoa, that's real, or just it shakes you to your core, even if you don't really realize it when it comes to even if you're a casual audience member, in my opinion, because you have to have been that wowed me. That was probably just a good movie,
Wow.
Maybe you just said it like that, but you were probably moved because something was probably visually was crazy and it kind of hit you hard.
It's the thing with Tom Cruise. It feels attainable because he's actually doing it and he's determined. So you're well, that's something I could do, but also it's still human. It's not.
Yeah, right. Because he's not these people.
Literally flying around on strings or on some giant. He becomes a CGI thing at some point and is flying around. He's oh, this is attainable.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think, hell, in my opinion, I know I love the Mission Impossible movies, but I was but this might be his opus, and so
That's great.
I was thinking about this earlier. Mission Impossible was a thing before Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is kind of more like his baby. And
it's just Tom Cruise. Yeah,
exactly. And Mission Impossible, it's we're focusing on a bunch of different people also. Where
he also just hijacked that thing too.
And
and really
Simon
some
Pegg.
amazing filmmakers on
Mission Impossible.
And Kaczynski's amazing too. But they each had a vision for their Mission Impossible that Tom Cruise helped.
Yeah.
But this one feels more him.
Totally, and it's wild to have him make a. It's funny. He was never really gone. Because I was saying this is a return or something to form. He was never really gone, but it's just it's wild that he hit with the movie like this, and for it to come so many years after the.
Yeah.
I say that a lot when it comes to legacy sequels that really move me, but this one is just wild. So yeah, Top Gun Maverick, really good shit.
What else could we say that hasn't already been said about it?
Yeah, and there's there's so many things that make this movie so unique. We already talked about Tom Cruise, and
it is a little too much patting on the back though, because
we're just jacking it off.
Well, I'm just saying there was more. I mean, I know that there's the story is you need your team and stuff like that, and maybe but I felt just that line you're heading towards the end, it's inevitable. He's maybe, but not today. It's
not today.
It still just feels weird that he's still the most badass person in this movie at the very end. And
that's why he's very clear about him not wanting to make a sequel to this movie, and people are mad because they're you can make a ton of money. He's well, if it's really perfect, but he's yeah, we don't have to make a sequel.
Yeah.
Which to me is kind of a power move on its own way, because I'm sure Paramount wants 100 of these movies.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's saying no.
I'm sure he doesn't own the rights, and they'll do it without him. I'm just kidding.
Well, there's and so there's all of that element, and then also the element of this movie being held until theaters could sustain it during COVID.
Yeah, they finished filming in 2019.
There's so much of this that is super unique for this to be, his highest grossing movie, one of the highest grossing movies of the year, and most watched, most talked about, and in movies in theaters for so long that I feel it has gotten really close to recapturing the cultural impact of the first Top Gun, which is rare to say because Top Gun was obviously, so big for that year, and then maybe even for all of the 80s. But a really special movie. We really freak out. I mean, I'm just so impressed with the way they made this damn movie that I'm pissed they don't have a fighter jet with me,
Yeah.
But we're really impressed on that front, and they're going to be remembered for it. But the story is solid. It's really one of the best sequels that you can make, because it is a sequel and it does reference and deal with the repercussions of the very first movie, which is sad because if you think about it, you've kind of kept Goose's family estranged for a while. It's a very weird movie. We didn't even get into the fact that Rooster's mom told him not to let him fly, you know, and he's like, I'll take it. Like, you know, hey, I do my own stunts. I could also do my own emotional stunts.
Yeah,
I can take the blame, you know, like it's like rich and textured and that is the part I think that was the most surprising for me, because I figured, you know, with the upgrades in technology, the movie would be on a technical level a lot better than the first one. It obviously surpassed those expectations, but they spent a lot of time making sure that Maverick was a fully fleshed out human,
right? Yeah,
that was dealing with stuff and had an imperfect, you know, love life and had friends that were alien help. Like it's a very textured movie for a person that also is the best fighter pilot that I guess ever existed.
Yeah,
you know. But yeah, I can't wait for the potential for a third one. He's got to take down those drones, baby.
Top Gun Rooster.
Also, it's going to be in like 30 years.
Top Gun drone. How about just watching some crazy ass drone
footage?
Just like
Top Guns.
Oh, 2 guns, 2 Tom Cruise, 2
Furious.
Top Gun 2. Fast 2. You got to do a pun. Top 10.
Top 2 gun.
Top 10. Top X.
Top 10.
Well, we hope you've seen Top Gun. I bet you have. It's on Paramount Plus.
It is on Paramount Plus,
and I'm sure it's going to be in theaters.
Probably still in. Yeah. Is it still? No, it's not.
It's not. But
it's
I bet
Blu-ray,
they're going to do a
probably.
re-release because it isn't going to be nominated for best.
They'll probably do it like every 4th of July or in.
I forgot about that. It was a big 4th of July movie too.
That's what I mean. It's like it's America.
Yeah. The second time we watched this movie, there was like a bus that Air Force like cadets went and watched it with us in the theater, and it worked. I mean, people clapped and cheered and stuff.
That's probably very inspirational for a lot of like young military people. Like,
they
no
probably
doubt.
show this on like in the rec room.
It's gonna be some propaganda.
Well, when we talk about nuance, a lot of people, that's one of the criticisms with the first Top Gun. DOD paid for some of the first Top Gun movie, and people are like, it's part of the military industrial.
Recruit. They're like, damn, people want to recruit.
I'm not even. People are like, why did they give millions of dollars to Top Gun?
They're like, who were the villains in this movie?
But this movie,
what people were we attacking?
This movie had a little bit more nuance, you know, because in a way they kind of villainized Maverick, you know, that damn military, even though it was still about.
They kind of do that in the first one also.
America winning, but you know, yeah. Well, let's go around the horn and give some plugs. Drew, what do you have to plug?
I want to plug the game that we're supposed to play on this show and that we didn't. I'm just kidding.
Sorry. Hey, we don't play games on Tom Cruise episodes.
That's fair. The Dirt Sheet Radio.
It's too easy to make them. That's why.
Yeah, we didn't want to say anything about the military. I'm just kidding.
Or Scientology. Oops.
Too late.
You just did.
You got to keep the church and state separate.
I know.
Plug in the Dirt Sheet Radio. If for all your professional wrestling needs with John Escudero and his hosts over yonder.
McMahon's back, baby.
Maybe. McMahon's back, maybe, because it seems like he's selling. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. His daughter quit, right?
Yeah. She took
wild.
that fall.
Yeah.
But yeah, go check. See the drama. Even people who don't watch wrestling, they know. John and Emmanuel know.
That's off the ring. That's not even
for
like,
sure.
Oh, is there a sex scene? What's going on
They
here?
talk about all that. John's watching Vince McMahon's sex scene. I'm just kidding. Go check out The Countdown Strikes Back as well. My favorite thing to do is talk Star Wars. I love movies.
Tom Cruise in a Star Wars.
Nick Cage in Star Trek. I'm just kidding. I love talking Star Wars, so go check that out. We're knee deep in the Bad Batch, and then Mando starts after that, and then there's a Jedi Survivor one that we can probably do, and we can do Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor all in one.
Just lots of Star Wars shit.
I love Star Wars.
I love the news from Ahsoka. I don't really check the news that often, but some of it trickles through, and I'm like, if that happens in Ahsoka,
we're getting Mando, we're getting Ahsoka, we're getting the Acolyte.
Yeah,
it's gonna be packed.
Yeah,
with Star Wars
Ask
goodness.
Okra.
Andor season 2 in 16 years. It'll be exciting.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Andor.
He's gonna sound even more rugged when by the time it comes
he's gonna
out.
have like a 10-minute monologue about life, and we're gonna love it.
We're gonna have to, whenever that season 2 of that show comes out, we'll have to like see. It was like, is it going the midnight mass way, where it's just like everyone's just having monologues?
I'm not joking. Those should be in theaters, right? Like
Midnight
they should
Mass?
be putting Andor in theaters.
Mass?
No,
No.
yeah, I guess Midnight Mass should be in theaters too.
I'm down.
Andor. I don't know about that. I mean, it's still very television.
That would be amazing if they would.
It's like I get more Sopranos or like or like really good television vibes from Andor. I don't
saw
really
this-
get like movie vibes.
I want to see the Eye in theaters.
They had a They had a sneak peek at Andor before the Rogue One IMAX re-release that I saw.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I remember being like, holy shit,
How
this
about-
format
how
is
about
amazing.
Not per episode, but maybe like do the finale, like anything with
The greatest hits.
I guess so. That
Yeah,
might be
great.
okay. But I was like,
I
but
want to see
just
them
don't-
escape the prison.
Do you remember when fucking The Mandalorian filmed their first episode on IMAX cameras?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but I just don't
For
think
what?
like
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait a minute.
more people would
How
go
did
and
they do that.
But more people would go see the Mando stuff than they would.
Yeah, I
Andor.
guess so, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
they're
Andor
both
wouldn't.
in there, yeah.
But Andor wouldn't make a whole lot of money. I'm just thinking because like it's not a whole lot of like shots fired. Yeah, I mean that's not it.
I'm just saying one screen. You don't have to do 4,000 screens for an Andor episode. Just one or two.
I loved Andor.
damn.
It was great. Yeah. Oh, what am I plugging? I guess.
Yeah, you're plugging. Yeah,
I'm
start
plugging
plugging.
Andor.
Hell yeah. Go watch
Andor
the best Star
on-
Wars thing in the last
It's
40,
probably-
30 years.
Yeah, it's probably the best Star Wars thing in a while, and just one of the best TV things last year. So go ahead watch that. I'm going to plug. What the fuck is there else to plug? Director Showdown and the the Dirt Sheet Radio. Oh yeah, the Screen Slush online at the Marvel Show. The Marvel Show too. Yes, but I was talking about the Screen Slush stuff. Like that's it's pretty cool. Some pretty cool episodes online on the Patreon if you go and sign up for the Delphin Pod Patreon. And yes, I will plug Countdown to Infinity. I think it's a little slow on the Marvel front, but it's about to speed up because
Pretty slow.
we got Ant-Man and some Kang coming up pretty soon. It's really soon actually. I didn't know it was already next month.
February.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, go check that out.
Thanks so much for listening to this. We've got just a couple more episodes before the end of the season, right?
Yeah, I think we got we got a few, and then
Keep
that should
this
be
going
it.
forever.
The end of our 7th season.
Yes, I think theoretically, I think it still might be the 8th, but yeah,
Oh,
7th
shit.
season. It's definitely the 7th or 8th year. One of
7th
those.
or 8th year.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
Peace out.